Hello everybody and welcome back to, well, a little bit of a treat if you like this game, of course. Of course, it's Suzerain. Welcome back. Yeah, bit of an impromptu one. I absolutely love this game. I have finished my first playthrough on the channel, the stream series, which, well, I won't spoil it for you if you've not watched it and you're intending to watch it, but hey, it ended, I'll let you see for yourselves. But I also played a second playthrough off camera where I was playing in a way that I tried to do things that I would tend to do when faced with the same situation, armed with a little bit of knowledge about how certain things work after the first playthrough, trying to get an optimum ending. And I managed to reach the re-election and didn't win. Came third, in fact. I was gobsmacked, actually. I was convinced I was going to win a second term and finished third, not even second. Got beaten by the PFJP and the National Front. Finished second, I think. I think we finished third. I was mortified, and then you get the epilogue, and my epilogue was like, yeah, we failed. We were so adamant we were going to get a second term that we failed, and we lived out our days on our personal vineyard, ruining the fact that we didn't finish what we'd started. So that was a sad ending. I was absolutely horrified. So I thought to myself, right, I'm going to play a third playthrough, and because I've played the game twice now, and it's very rare for me to play a game a second time, let alone a third, because I don't replay games, but the replayability of this game is fantastic. I decided to myself that I was going to play a third playthrough, but to allow me to play that third playthrough, I'm going to have to play it on camera, because I've played the game twice now, so to play it a third time, a second time off camera, I'm going to struggle. So I thought, let's play a third playthrough, a second playthrough for you guys on camera, and I'm going to play as an absolute arsehole. Excuse the language. But I'm going to play as a right nasty, selfish Anton Rayne. Because my first two playthroughs I didn't play anything like that. So I thought I'm going to go completely nasty here and see where it gets us. Do we even make it to the end? Do we get assassinated? That can happen. You know, and if we do make it to the end, what's going to happen there? So the playthrough here is going to be of that nature. So my plan with this series, and if you're seeing this, I'm going to record the entire series and have all the videos saved on my computer, and then upload them pretty much one a day, regardless of what else I'm doing on the channel. So if you're seeing this, it means that I've managed to make it to the end and my goal has been successful. So it's just, this is a bonus, really. It's to supplement anything else I'm doing. It's not replacing anything I'm doing. It's kind of like my off-camera treat to myself, although it's on camera. It's a game that I'm just going to sit down and play at my leisure, record at my leisure, backlog the videos, and then upload them all pretty much at the same time, one a day, so that you've got something additional to watch if you like this game. That's how it's going to work. And the videos, I'll aim to keep them to a length of an hour, and almost like an audio book, if you will, because there's a lot of reading in this game, and we have obviously played this game before. If you've seen it, you know what happens and a lot of the things, but I'm still going to read everything. I'm still going to narrate it all, and hopefully this might be something that you can kind of put on in the background whilst you're working, whilst you're doing other things, and just listen and chill, and just enjoy and see how different the playthrough turns out compared to if you play a really nice and kind of good Mr. Rayne. But it's a political simulator, of course, so, you know, define good. You know, you still have to make a choice. You've still got political leanings. You know, welfare versus capitalism and all the rest of it. But I don't profess to be a political expert, of course. But anyway, so we're playing a not too nice Mr. Rayne on this one. So without further ado, we'll dive in. But yeah, we're going to be a not so nice Mr. Rayne. So we're going to be quite chauvinistic, anti-women. You know, all about having fun with your mates, all about creaming off profits and trying to be as wealthy as possible and as, you know, earn your own fortune. Gonna be as power hungry as possible, so very, you know, trying to get as much power as possible, all about keeping the power for himself, almost like dictator type. But it's going to be quite a nationalist kind of person. It's all about Sordland first. Sordland is should be able to stand on its own 2 feet. Will be a superpower, I'm sure. You know, we will look after ourselves, and who needs anything else? Unless, of course, it benefits him personally. So that's the kind of mantra. So it will be a planned economy doctorate, but, you know, market economy where it's going to be where it's going to suit him. If there's personal wealth to be had out of it, well, I can change my outlook. So we'll see how it goes. You'll get the feel for it as we're going through. But yeah, I'm kind of intrigued to see how being a total twat, again, pardon the language, how far that can get you in this game. So yeah, we might even ally ourselves with the old guard, because a lot of Sol's policies are all about keeping Sol in power. So they're quite good, and I'm gonna see if we can actually just completely not bother going with the reforms that happen. So, you know, it's going to be interesting to see how different this playthrough is, and that's what's going to keep this fresh to me. Having played the game twice now, is that I'm assuming we'll be going down so many different branches compared to what I did in the first playthrough and second playthrough, that I'm going to be seeing quite a lot of still new things. And one final thing before I start is obviously a lot of the newspaper articles and a lot of the briefings we'll have seen in the first playthrough, so I'm not going to read all of those on camera. I'll pause the recording when I'm reading those and just give you the highlights of those, particularly if there are any that crop up that might be different from the first playthrough. So, name of the game. I'm just going to be very original here and call it LP2 because it's my second LP of this game. I was thinking of putting something like like a really rude word. Trotty Rayne. I don't know. Sorry, that's the third time I've sworn on this opening video, but you know, it is what it is. Let's crack on. LP2. We'll keep it original. So here we are. We know about Sordland. It's in recession. We are a major power. We are Anton Rayne. We have taken over from Alfonso, Ewald Alfonso. I'm going to read this and do everything apart from the briefings and the newspaper articles. But yeah, just in case you didn't see the first playthrough. You are my enslavement of my freedom. You are my flesh burning like a raw summer night. You are a country. Okay, let's go. 1908, the Kingdom of Sordland. You opened your eyes to this world. You came from a wealthy family in the city of Leshaven. Your parents named you Anton. As the only child of a successful businessman, you had the chance to grow up in a wealthy family. Life was easy at first, and you had the best education money could afford. However, things inside the Rayne family changed due to the absence of your father. This affected your mother and you negatively. In 1923, during a history class at school, the bell started to ring unexpectedly. You heard a loud commotion outside. As everyone tried to figure out what was going on, the principal announced the historic revolution. The kingdom was no more. The Republic of Sordland was born. You were just happy you had the day off. After graduating, you passed the university exam with high marks. You had the opportunity to choose between several studies, and you chose economics at the Leshaven Business School, simply because you couldn't be bothered to travel any further. We lived in Leshaven, so we'll study there. During the first year, you attended a lecture with David Wishy. He was a well-known diplomat from the Foreign Ministry and the son of the President. After observing the hall in silence, he explained why a market economy is the better option for Sordland. He argued for a system where prices for goods and services are determined by the open market. You questioned what you were being taught. And in 1927, soldiers entered the campus in the evening ahead of the first election. Many were in shock as the uniformed men created a security cordon and started arresting the teachers. A group of students started gathering in protest. Along with your best friend, Peter Vecton, you decided to protest with the students. One of the officers made a loud announcement that echoed through the campus. General Suzerain declared martial law in order to restore the administration. Please stand back and disperse to your rooms. You joined the students that slowly marched toward the large group of soldiers. Suddenly, the soldiers charged. A student fell and was trampled as everybody started running away. You held your ground. The soldiers beat you relentlessly. It was a gloomy year. The majority of the students and teachers displayed their opposition. Thus, the Shaven became a target for the military regime. You didn't want to stay idle and decided to join a political debate group. The dozens of debates helped you hone your oratory skills while also helping you to grow your network. Even though the discussions between different groups often became heated, you grew from the sharing ideas. In one of the meetings, Peter Vecton introduced you to a classmate of his, Monica. You were immediately attracted to her beauty. She mentioned to you that she was a volunteer for the Swordish League of Women, an organisation campaigning for women's rights. You weren't particularly interested in women's rights, but asked her to dinner nonetheless. The politically charged environment led you to join the Young Swords, the Nationalists. In 1928, June the 2nd, the radio relayed that the communist general Ricard surrounded Suzerain and his troops, demanding their surrender. They refused and heavy fighting broke out across the country. You just couldn't believe it. The army was fighting amongst themselves. Sordland was plunged into chaos. Ricard's sudden attack caused even more bloodshed in the country. He seemed different compared to fascist Suzerain. In your opinion, however, he was more of the same. So you participated in a protest march. You were chanting, "One nation, one system, one people." You were marching against Ricard. The students and soldiers against Suzerain's coup gathered a few hundred metres away. Many socialists were among them. You knew something was going to happen, so you stayed. There was a massive clash between the two sides. Soldiers began to beat the students. Tanks started rolling forward. In this chaotic moment, you saw a young girl about to get run over by a tank. You warned her, but your efforts were in vain. The clashes escalated into a full-blown civil war. The horrors made you isolate yourself for a while. Monica helped you to cope, and love grew between the two of you. However, it was a difficult time for love. And then, in 1929, the charismatic Colonel Tarquin Sol orchestrated a sudden attack on the capital, where the Ludinist and Ricardist forces were battling each other. He defeated both, ending the war. A new constitution was written, and the military government began efforts to restore stability. Many people saw the colonel as a saviour. He formed the United Sordland Party and ran as a presidential candidate. In the first ever single-party elections, you voted for the United Sordland Party. They won the election by a large majority. The military government announced a 4-year restoration period to transform to an entirely civilian government. After graduation, you kept seeing Monica. You were both interested in marrying and starting a family. However, a letter arrived from the military calling you to fulfill your compulsory service. It was time to serve your national duty. And in 1930, a devastating civil war broke out in the neighbouring country Valen. It quickly turned into a proxy war between regional and world powers. The distinguished Major, Iosif Lancer, ordered you to lead your squad on a border patrol mission. It was a very cold winter night when you began marching out of Gumran Outpost. You could see your breath. After several hours of marching through the snowy hills, distant noises were heard. Visibility was too low to confirm the source, so the squad crawled forward in formation and found a spot to observe. A group of refugees had made it beyond the border fence. You escorted them back. The refugees were in despair when they realised that you were taking them back to the border. Screams and protests ensued as they were restrained. You delivered them to the border guards, and after several months of military service, you went back to civilian life. In 1931, in Holsword, you and Monica decided to share your lives together. After receiving the blessings of her parents, the ceremony was held. During the same year, you were offered a high-paying job within the governing United Sordland Party. It was important to start your career on a good foot, so you accepted it. Working for the ruling party was the easiest path to power. You became the economics assistant to one of the more experienced members of the Assembly. You worked long and hard, investigating hundreds of pages of economic reports late into the night. You were climbing the ladder. In 1933, Tarquin Sol gave amnesty to the remaining factions of the Civil War and chose de-escalation and appeasement. The institutions and symbols of the former kingdom were slowly replaced. His government launched several new initiatives, such as a citizen-funded bills programme to revitalise the economy, a social labour initiative to help rebuild and improve society, and a large dam project to solve the energy crisis. The first multi-party elections in the history of Sordland were held. President Tarquin Sol was elected once again. The new 5-year plan and the subsequent financial work put you under a lot of pressure. But your significant contribution to the economic strategy triggered an invitation to meet President Sol himself, who offered you a key position. You were to become the youngest member of the Assembly, and you accepted right away. As the youngest MP, it was difficult to connect with the influential inner circle. You needed allies, so you brought on Peter Vecton as your right-hand man. The birth of your son Frank provided a brief moment of joy and relief. You sacrificed family time to improve your position in the party. Just like your father. Along with Peter Vecton, you accomplished great things, however. At home, Monica and Frank felt your absence. Meanwhile, President Sol increased his authority over the years. His growing ego started to cause strife within the USP, and the cracks began to show. In 1945, President Sol barely secured a majority in the election against the opposition leader. Over the next year, the Swordish people grew increasingly discontent with corruption and worsening quality of life. Economic growth was slowing down. Meanwhile, calls for a united Sordland Party Congress became louder as a leadership struggle started to brew. You watched from the sidelines. The contender for the party leadership was Ewald Alfonso, a reformist and talented business magnate with a growing follower base within the party. Meanwhile, in a desperate effort to secure votes before the Congress, President Saul was meeting party members one by one. He approached you too. The President offered you the position of Minister of Economy, Commerce and Energy in the next government if you backed him in the upcoming vote. However, after watching from the sidelines, you felt there was going to be a shift in power, thus you rejected. The Congress was nothing short of impressive. The banners of the United Sordland Party were decorating every possible spot. Thousands of influential political figures, lobbyists and benefactors gathered for this turning point. The voting for the party leadership began. And you voted for Ewald Alfonso. The efforts bore fruit as the contentious leadership vote was won by Ewald Alfonso. During the Congress, Tarquin Sol announced he would retire from politics at the end of his term and appointed Alfonso as vice president. You knew the structure he had established was to stay. The country had become increasingly authoritarian. You didn't care about who was in charge. A month later, your daughter was born. Monica named her Dina. She motivated you during a tumultuous period in the party. As the VP and the leader of the USP, Alfonso began dismantling the old organisations and structures established by the USP, such as the State Educator Corps and the Sordland State Corporation Bills. The general elections were approaching. The United Sordland Party was under new leadership. And you joined the party effort and campaigned for him. During the general elections, the main opposition leader was embroiled in a sex scandal with his secretary. He was replaced by the more popular figure, Franz Richter, but the damage had been done. The new economic policies and the extensive privatisation programme proposed by Alfonso secured an election victory for the United Sordland Party. Over the following years, you tried all that was necessary to climb up the ladder. The presidency of Alfonso saw many bold reforms in government and law, and advancements in liberal democratic values. He valued your support throughout. However, due to infighting and disorganisation, continental economic tensions, and fast-track privatisation, it was followed by a severe economic recession. The other parties announced their bids for the 1953 election, but the unfair election system hampered opposition efforts to campaign. You worried that your reputation would be tarnished. With Peter's help, your presence in the USP grew. The two of you worked long nights together. He flipped opponents to your side. You became the face of a new wing of the party. Step by step and with adequate planning, your wing took over the leadership as President Alfonso lost control of the country. The moment to make a move had come. You advised Alfonso to step down. He listened to your advice. Alfonso conceded the leadership struggle, and the party eventually voted you in because of your indisputable influence. Following this, you announced that you would be running for president in the general election, with Peter as your running mate. After visiting every city and town during the campaign, you made a speech on state television. You promised to preserve national values. Great nation of Sordland, due to our incompetent leadership, enemies both internal and external are influencing our glorious nation. Today more than ever, we need to unite under one flag and protect our values. Gracie Sordland. On election day, millions went out to cast their votes, and it was time to face the truth. Chapter 1, President Rayne. Okay, there we go, folks. That's the backstory to our Mr. Rayne this time round. So first of all, we've got to give him a look that's kind of conducive to being a roguish fella. I quite like that one. Intellectual, though. When he is educated, I suppose. Right, come on. How do we want... We're stuck with this guy now, so how are we going to... I quite like that. I really do. Attire? I'm thinking like tuxedo. I'm thinking like cigar. Even bowl looks pretty cool, you know. Movie star, hair slick. Oh, that's pretty nice. Do we go with... Oh, look at that. Stylish. Yeah, stylish is good. No. Gentleman, swept over. A hat. I don't think we're going to wear a hat this time. No hats. We're going to go with hair. Or bald, maybe. Long hair. Movie star. Rebellious. Stylish. If you quickly glanced your eyes away and looked at this picture again for a very, very quick, brief moment, I get a bit of DiCaprio vibes here. I don't know about you, is it just me? If you like quickly glance at a certain angle. I think we're going to go with that. Movie star? Well, you know, it's a pretty decent hairstyle. Cigar has got to be in the mouth, of course, and I quite like that. Beard and moustache. I'm thinking a tuxedo though for a president. It's probably not quite appropriate attire. It just looks the most kind of screams dictator to me. I don't know. Definitely not a suit. I don't think so. I mean, that's quite a suity, just plain Jane suit. I think I like tuxedo. Something about it. Right, there you go. This is our Mr. Rayne this time around. Looking very suave. All about the wealth, all about the luxuries of life. All about me. Are you sure? Yeah, sure as I'll ever be. Right, election camp. So this is the promises that we make, right? Doesn't mean we have to stick to them. And playing the kind of Mr. Rayne that we're playing, we might not. But given that we're kind of playing with a kind of a nationalist viewpoint for the most part, unless it's personally in our favour not to, we're going to promote a planned economy. Doesn't mean that we have to stick to it, of course, but we'll go with that. It's an election campaign promise. He's an economist, so he probably understands that it's probably not the best route, but hey, who cares about best routes? Just give me my money, give me my time in power, and I'll cling on to it for as long as I can, and when I've finished, I'll cream the profits and off I pop. Who cares what state the country's in when I leave it? So we'll go with plan for now. Diplomatic leaning, we're remaining neutral. I didn't align with anybody in my first playthrough, I did with my second. Look how that turned out for me, still didn't get re-elected. So we'll remain neutral in fitting with his kind of viewpoint. Tough on immigration, naturally. And term focus, military. We need to be able to protect ourselves from impending threats. Giving all the money to Mr. Lanceya this time, folks. Yeah, there you go. It's our campaign promises. Am I sure? Hell yes, I am. Alright. Don't you just love that music? It's good to be back again for the third time. 2 weeks have passed since we won the election. And now I was about to be sworn in as the 4th president of Sordland. Thousands were watching the inauguration ceremony and cheering my name. Anton Rayne. The die was cast, and there my story began. In the distance, the Maroon Palace stood on top of the famous Hill of Pride. I had no way of knowing what future awaited me there. I looked at my family. My son and daughter, Frank and Dina, were next to my wife, Monica. Her eyes were glimmering with pride. Then I turned towards the key people who made it all possible. Of course, each individual was promised an important position in my government. I saw my previous rival and former president, Ewald Alfonso, who gave me a slight nod. Tarquin Saul was also invited, but, as expected, he didn't leave his island retreat. As my thoughts slowly faded away, the reality of the situation dawned on me. Also, Hawker, the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, was waiting for me. And it was time for me to swear the oath of the President. Let's get this show on the road, I said. And so I repeated the oath, and it was now time to deliver my inauguration speech. And once again, I was eager to begin. Brothers and sisters. The crowd looked very eager to listen to me. We are enduring economic hardship like never before, and today our nation is falling apart. Our people, we suffer in this dire situation. We still have insufficient infrastructure, houses without electricity, without water. We have crime in our streets, unemployment within the youth, and we still have injustices in the government that plagues us. The future, however, awaits us. Sordland is above all in the world. It is time for a united and powerful Sordland once again. Hundreds of thousands cheered. They were shouting my name in unison. I felt the responsibility. I felt the power and the burden all at the same time. I raised my fist in the air, which triggered a huge burst of applause. And I took a long look at the people of Sordland to burn this moment into my memory. One of the presidential guards came by to notify me that it was time to leave. I made my way to the leading car in the motorcade. The presidential state car was a jet black Cadilla with flags of Sordland above the front headlights. Next to it, a man was holding the door. "Hello, Mr. President." I still felt euphoric from the aftermath of my speech. Hearing my new title made me smile even more. "If you will allow me to introduce myself, I am Sergey, your new driver." "Ah, nice to meet you, Sergey." "It is an honor." He respectfully bowed his head before opening the car door and gesturing inside. I entered. "We will be heading toward the palace." The motorcade began to move. On the way, Sergey proceeded to explain his duties as a driver. As minutes passed by, I found myself lost in thought again, barely paying attention to what he was saying. He suddenly gestured out the window. "Isn't it a beauty? The Maroon Palace." He was right. Sunlight glinted off the palace's many maroon-coloured domes. It was so bright that I had to look away. Every time I look at it, I am reminded of my duty to this nation. Ah, yes. It is in good hands now. Is it? I am sure of that, Mr. President. The car drove past the majestic gates, continued uphill to the entrance, and stopped in front of the doors. Sergey got out of the car and opened the door for me. "Have a great day, Mr. President. A mogno esko." He referred to the famous swordish phrase from the times of revolution. A mogno esko, lectern sisda, which meant morning will come. Victory is close. Vecturn, sister. I made my way upstairs through the extravagant corridors of the palace. Marble and engraved wooden finishes decorated the interior. My footsteps echoed in the colossal halls. The guards bowed their heads in respect as I opened the massive doors to my new office. And so it all begins. Right. So, where are we? Let me get my bearings here. So basically, the first lot of briefings are reporting nothing but problems. Low production in Agland, of course, we know about this. Lack of investment in the region. Everything is pretty much doom and gloom. Leshaven, the port of Leshaven loses its importance. So again, everything is on the decline here. That's everything internally, pretty much. The General Staff, which is the military branch of higher-ups, convene and congratulate us after our victory in the elections, and they are happy that we've promised to strengthen and support them. So hopefully, unlike my last playthrough, we might have a good relationship with the military this time. When it comes to foreign news, lots of congratulations from the various leaders on our appointment, as you would expect, a momentous occasion. And of course, there's things about the ATO and the CSP that will be rumbling on. I'll let you read those at your leisure. In fact, I'll just pause. You can pause the screen as and when they crop up. Looking at the newspaper articles, first of all, the campaign bill is about to be presented to us soon, which, when this first happened, I didn't actually appreciate this in full, but we'll get to it when it occurs. But we'll read it in full when it crosses our desk. Rayne emphasised Sordland's dire situation. That was the theme of our speech, focusing on what's wrong and promising that, hey, we're going to rise up above this and become a powerful nation once again. We shall see if that indeed is the case. And here we go. Congratulations from various members of the oppositions, sworn in with 37% of the general vote. The Economics, a paper which is, I'm sure it was, I read it was owned by the bigwigs, the old business magnates. Clearly want to end Solonomics because it doesn't serve them any purpose if we aren't promoting a free market economy. And a bit of talk about mega infrastructure projects being successful perhaps in other areas. The new assembly will duly begin its duty at the start of the term, and the radical, well, unhappy that another USP president has been sworn in. Is it not time for a change, they say? You'll be wanting a change after by the time we've finished, I can quite assure you of that much. Okay, so there you go, there's your papers and there's your briefings. We're about 40 minutes in, so we've got another 20 minutes to go. As I say, I'll keep these videos to roughly round about the hour mark to save my voice because there's a lot of reading here, and keep these sessions to a decent enough length for you to get your teeth stuck into it, but not too long, like a stream that you have to come back several times to finish it. So more things to read. Logistical issues in Hall Sword, which is our capital. We may address that coming up. And here we go. We've got two briefings which we will be attending in our early term. Political and economic. We'll start with the economic briefings. Simon, Gus and Lilius. Well, good to see you all again, some of you. Back again for round 2. So, here we are, the White Room, where all important meetings take place. 2 assistants arrive carrying a heavy projector, standing by the door with it, waiting for the ministers to enter. From the hallway, I heard Lilius Graff's voice. She was using the patient, almost motherly tone she often took in heated arguments. Gus, do you really think that such an economically advanced area is more in need of investment than Agland? Lilius, my interior minister, strode in. She was clad in shades of brown and beige, the only spot of colour a bright yellow Dasnuris cross on her necklace. Gus followed close behind. Don't be an idiot, Lilius. What about the unemployment crisis the Greater Hallsword and Gelsland regions are going through? These areas are our economic heartland. Gus curled his hands into fists. The Minister of Agriculture and Rural Development's temper hadn't changed since his days in the Alfonso administration, but neither had his reputation for getting things done. His far-reaching network of connections was unlike any other. Simon Hall quickly stepped between the two ministers without looking at them and cleared his throat. Good morning, Mr. President. What was that debate about? Just a disagreement in internal economic strategy, President Rayne. I'm not sure if I would call it just a disagreement, Lilius. Gus, care to enlighten me? Miss Graff seeks to focus our economic development in a region where we can't reap the financial benefits. Business leaders are requesting better logistical links in order to contribute to the economy more. A wise idea if your main agenda is to make money instead of developing the region and serving the people. Lilius, care to elaborate? Of course. The argument is simple. Agland is our weakest region, both in terms of economic and social support. We should support the city of Arvery and its respected mayor. How impartial can you really be? Simon was observing the argument. Why are you questioning her impartiality? This snake of a woman is the former mayor of Arvery, and Eric Neal is her successor. Her argument could be biased. Gus, dear, my arguments are proven by simple economic data. Our poorest and least developed region is Agland. The facts are clear, but it seems to me that you'd rather resort to name-calling to push your agenda. The figures are skewed by Inargis to make it look like a developed region, for example. In truth, it is the poorest region of all. Simon stepped in. I would like to put a stop to this debate. We'll discuss it all calmly and logically. Lilius and Gus went silent. Simon pulled a silk handkerchief out of his pocket and briefly wiped his glasses. My staff and I have comprehensively analysed every aspect of... He was interrupted by a groan from one of the assistants by the door, both of whom were now visibly struggling to hold up the heavy projector. Oh, yes, you can put that there. He pointed below the painting of President Sol. The assistants placed a projector next to the table and installed a white screen on the wall. Leave now. Thank you. And please, leave now. The assistants left the cabinet room. I was reminded that Simon had never quite had a way with people, but his facility with numbers had made him the most sought-after economic specialist in Sordland. Simon started looking for his slides. He always carried documentation around with him. We stifled a yawn. Simon stared at me disapprovingly. Mr. President, I am about to explain some very serious data. We stayed silent and gave him a glaring look. Suddenly, the mood in the room turned slightly sour. There have been some developments about the Sordis Wren losing further value today. We have been trying to stabilise it with the central bank. The recession of 51 put enormous pressure on the economy, resulting in the collapse of the value of our currency. The entire situation was a significant cause of concern for our administration. Since economics is your forte, Mr. Rayne, it is possible that you might already be aware of the data. I can still explain the current economic situation in better detail. Fine. What's our GDP and debt situation? Our current GDP is 310 billion Sordland, and the national debt is 427 billion. Oh, still hard to fathom that we lost nearly 150 billion in wealth. The past 3 years were tough. Look, as you said yourself, Simon, I studied economics. I'm well versed in the situation. Let's move on to the strategy part, shall we? Simon scattered the paper stack in front of him in an orderly manner and took a final look at his notes before clearing his throat. Fine. As you can see then, the situation is alarming, but not everything is negative. The extensive privatisation programme of Alfonso and key foreign direct investments left us a large budget surplus, which we can use to stabilise the crisis. The primary subject we need to settle on is what general path we will take in our term. Solonomics-based nationalisation happened in the 30s, and Alfonso's privatisation began during the end of the 40s. What will our administration focus on? One of our main promises was to promote a planned economy to stop the recession. To be frank, I still don't think this was a good idea. We shouldn't go back to Solonomics. It is the reason of the recession. Self-sufficiency will help us in tough times. Simon ignored the statement. Look, the more of the economy we control, the better we can manage the recession. There is a fair argument to be made, but if we reduce the freedom of people in the marketplace in general, it would hinder our innovation and dynamicism in the supply and demand equation. Say what you want about Alfonso. Without his attempts, our current coffers would be empty, and the recession would be a depression. One way to be remembered positively is to cause a recession and leave a few bills behind. The structural problems of Solonomics were going to lead to a recession, according to the predictions at the time anyway. Either way, even if we pick one of the doctrines, we retain the option to make economic choices on a case-by-case basis. That is, however, not recommended in my point of view. The last thing we need is a chaotic economic plan. Finally, something we can both agree on, Lilius. There is another important point which has a direct impact on our economy: superpowers. We have done well not aligning ourselves with any one of them. Economically speaking, an isolationist policy overall could only work if we were to reap the benefits of both spheres and their rivalry. This is very dangerous to attempt, but still possible. We must be very cautious. There are schemes being devised about Sordland. We cannot give in to their wants now or in the future. Otherwise, our country will turn into a pawn. Sordland will not be controlled by any nations. Precisely my point. We will stand strong and show an example to the world. I hope we won't regret this. Lilius had a sip of water from her glass. When the time comes, I hope you will make the right decision for our own good. We should attract more foreign direct investment, Mr. President. We saved the country from a full-on depression in 1952 and 1953 by signing lucrative trade deals with nations such as Rhoesia, Lesbia and Kinal. Simon cleared his throat again. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. Minister Wishy will be in charge of informing you on those types of foreign policy decisions. We must first decide on our internal economic plan. Simon put forward a legal document outlining the possibilities with both economic doctrines listed. The cabinet members looked at me. What's on our long-term economic schedule? Picking a construction company, trade relations, tax reform and welfare, privatisation or nationalisation. Initiatives would be some of them. We must choose wisely and remember that the free market economy in all forms is the future of the world. I wouldn't be so sure. Okay, fine, let's move to the conclusion. What are your final thoughts, Mr. President? Critical institutions must remain in state control. We must be fully responsible in delivering services. Few could be, and it wouldn't be negative, but either way, you make the choices. So, what will our general economic plan promote? Planned economy, as we promised. Ooh, not sure if we've made the right decision here. Gus look worried. Okay, now that there is clarity on which direction we are heading, I will work on a good plan accordingly. This concludes our meeting. At our next gathering, we will talk about the upcoming infrastructure investment plan. Now that the economic direction was taken, the ministers dispersed for lunch at the Maroon Palace. What was on the menu, I wonder? Right, we are at 52 minutes, which means I can probably squeeze in the political briefing. Let's have a look. So we are promoting planned economy, which is something that's familiar to us. Okay, so more doom and gloom from Lenkirk. Tourism industry collapsed. Investments in infrastructure taking a nosedive here. Here you go. The Shaven has paused oil extraction operations for essential maintenance. More infrastructure issues with the old rail network. In disrepair it is, although there's promising agricultural growth in Sana within the Berger region. A nugget of good news amongst all the negativity. Back to the negativity, as in Morna, increasing unemployment. But in Borin, there's been a surge in demand for local wines. It's good to know. A couple of bits of good news there. We've got a bit of increased agriculture and people are after our lovely wines. Right, the Contanan Security Pact. Again, read these at your leisure. Non-aggression pact signed there. And down here, Kingdom of Rhesia, more congratulations from King Romus Taurus, who of course will be playing as in the Kingdom of Rhesia DLC, which I'll be getting round to hopefully in the not too distant future. Congratulations from him. And in the newspapers, tourism could be a good hope for us, with an act currently under deliberation in the Grand National Assembly. We'll see whether we're signing it or not. We've got Gasson, set to bolster our infrastructure. It is an advert, however, sponsored by Alfonso, who's got ties, of course, to Gasson, so how neutral is that? And the economy meeting, of course, went ahead in Hallsword. Who knows what was discussed? Wouldn't you like to be a fly on the wall, nosy people? Armadine Industries, pioneering electronics. The pocket radio, first pocket radio, a prototype of, displayed by Arcasian electronics company Armadine Industries in Ventry Cities. Worth noting, we'll be plunging some money into that very shortly. You know, call it a hunch. And freezing temperatures recorded here in Suzerain and the Radical. Alfonso has ditched the Lotherberg group to steer his own path. Still remains the current chairman of Gasson. And we have nationalist violence. A man in his 20s beaten with baseball bats in Arvery. Oh dear. You've got to sort your city out, Mr. Mayor Neil. Tell you that much. Can't have that going on in the streets. Right, so we've had the economics briefing. We shall finish today's session with the political situation briefing. Peter Vecton, best chum and buddy, arrived a couple of minutes early and sat across from me. He was struggling to hold back his smile. We did it, Anton! We won! Finally! All those years with our noses to the grindstone paid off. Peter's eyes sparkled. The strain of the past months had put a damper on his usual rakish charm, but today he was looking and acting more like his old self. He loosened his tie and undid the top 2 buttons of his shirt. Enjoying the new secretary I picked out for you? Thought you'd appreciate her gorgeous set of talents. It's a shame the rest of your staff aren't as easy on the eyes. He gestured to the slight paunch that protruded over his waistband. But hey, back in university, did you ever imagine we would be sitting here in the Maroon Palace? We have to celebrate this great victory. Indeed, Mr. Vecton, indeed. Let's celebrate then. I got my hands on something special. An Earl Roy Maroon 30-year-old. I opened the expensive bottle of whiskey and poured it into the 2 glasses I prepared. The exquisite smell filled the room immediately. The 1924? That was my freshman year, also the year after the Revolution. Very difficult times, to be honest, but this smells like heaven. Screw 1924, Peter. It's tainting this moment. I raised my glass and toasted with Peter before smelling the whiskey and taking a sip. The sweet vanilla tone combined with an oaky taste developed into a lingering smokiness. Peter really seemed to be enjoying himself. What a taste! This is how we should start all meetings, Anton. Yes, we could. But maybe we shouldn't. Not just yet, anyway. We've only just started. Maybe not, but thanks for the drink. This is really amazing. The door swung open and Lucien Gallard, my chief strategist, walked in. He was a compact man with sharp bird-like features. After briefly surveying the room from wall to wall, he sat down, poured a glass of water and opened his briefcase in a series of quick, graceful movements. Gentlemen? The tall case clock in the room struck 3 o'clock. Damn! You are exactly on time. Hello, Peter. Lucien then turned towards me. He very slightly bowed his head. Right. Let's not waste any time, Lucien. Proceed with the overview. As you wish, sir. Lucien spoke in soft, clipped tones that immediately drew your attention towards what he had to say. Peter and I waited for him to proceed. Let's start by evaluating our current situation. The majority of the Swordfish people demand change. They are more concerned about the economy than the Constitution, but they blame the system for their problems. People are losing their trust in our democracy. Why do you think radicals like Bernard Circus are becoming more popular? Everyone's expecting us to bring the change the last government did not. Franz Richter, leader of the Reformists, believes that true change can only be accomplished by transferring some of our powers to the Assembly. I will move into the details of their demands shortly. If we lose power, we won't be able to execute the changes we need to make for the good of the country. It may create issues for us, yes. However, with the reformists gaining more popularity, we may not be in a position to stand against them. Mr. Richter managed to persuade many members of the Assembly to give their support for drafting a new constitution. Reformist politicians are quickly increasing in number. While the reformist wing inside our party is still a minority, they could have a tripartisan majority in the Assembly, especially if they unite under Franz Richter. Well, our party must fall in line with our position. We cannot have a strong divide. True. If our party fractures, it's the opposition that will benefit. The reformist demands are clear. They want to limit the President's veto powers, ensure that the Supreme Court is independent, and take away the court's right to vote on constitutional amendments. Can't say I'm overly stoked by that proposition. And I won't allow them to influence me. We will shape our own future. I agree, sir. The old guard will do its best to preserve the Constitution. Chief Justice Hawker and his allied judges have a great influence over the Supreme Court, which will be tough to break. The court has also the final say over constitutional legislation. Without their approval, we cannot even change it. Yes, well, I'd rather not go against them. The risks are too high. We need to work with the Supreme Court one way or the other. True, but we can't let the old guard manipulate us and then backstab us like they did with Alfonso. Many challenges ahead, it seems. We can figure it out. Our party still holds 130 out of 250 seats in the Assembly. We've got the power. However, to reform the Constitution, we must receive a 2/3 majority in the Grand National Assembly, which is 166 votes, and a simple majority in the Supreme Court that equates to 6 votes. After we have settled on how to proceed, we will need to talk with our party figures. Our first goal must be to get the 150 signatures needed to start the process. Following the green light from the USP, we will reach out to the other party leaders to see if they would back our draft. The last step is to convince the justices of the court. The entire process will take a long time, but we must start working with a reform committee to evaluate all possibilities for a new constitution as soon as possible. If we do go down the lines of a new constitution, perhaps it should give the President wide-ranging powers to lead Sordland into the future. No? Oh, that's very bold. Then we must start with eliminating the Supreme Court's authority over constitutional legislation and perhaps take their immunity away. Eliminating their authority over constitutional legislation and perhaps take away their immunity. Interesting. Don't forget, the reformists want us to address the loopholes in the presidential veto system. Yes, well, I will not limit my veto powers at all. Non-negotiable, we need them. Peter looked troubled. Oh, it would be very difficult to plead that case to the reformists. Taking away the legislative power of the Supreme Court while holding your own absolute authority over legislation would look like an attempt to consolidate your own power. We would lose all reformist support. Well, we don't need the reformists. We could always work with the NFP. Peter looked troubled even further. Well, that would be tough, sir, but I trust your judgment. It would be quite difficult to secure the 166 votes needed to propose such a bill. You would also be burning bridges with the reformists and the old guard. We can do it, Lucian. Look what happened and what we've accomplished so far. Of course. To clarify, before we head in any particular direction, what are your intentions, sir? Oof. Okay, so this is quite something. Going against the old guard and the reformists. It sounds like a path to destruction, doesn't it? But we want the power. The president needs to be able to exercise his powers with ease to maintain stability. I understand. We do not have to remove your veto. Instead, we can discuss limiting it with the reformists. Limiting the vetoes is not on our agenda here. So, no. I will only support a constitution. Do you know what? We're a nationalist. No! Lucian, no. You're not understanding what I'm saying here. I am only going to support a new constitution that strengthens my position. Forget the reformists and reach out to the NFP instead. Very well, we will begin to explore how to realistically pass such a constitutional change. We will form a reform committee and start talking with all stakeholders in the Assembly and the Court to see if such changes to the Constitution would be possible. By later in the year, we should know more about the reform contents and how to balance the clauses of the new Constitution. Lucian took notes. Another important point. We must be aware of the Lotharbert Group. The oligarchies convene under this organisation to influence economic policies. Conrath led it for a long time before falling ill. The new leader is Mr. Walter Tusk. According to reports, some members of the National Business Council are in their pockets. Tusk and the group will surely try to bribe us in exchange for special economic protections. I'll enter dialogue with them eventually. We need to be diplomatic, especially if that diplomacy involves them crossing my palm with gold for certain protections, for example. Wise approach. It's good to understand and see if we can reach a middle ground. Lucian looked at Peter. As far as I know, Marcel Cronty has some strong ties to this group. His influence could definitely be an asset for us, but I'm sure he'll want something in return. I am quite aware of Mr. Cronty's wide network. That could come in handy. Yeah, well, we just need to be careful with him. He looks like the lesser evil, but it could very quickly turn out to be the other way around. We need to tread carefully on all sides with all power players to survive our term. I need to underline the seriousness of this situation. Our election campaign promised to focus on the military. This was a safe choice. The military and the general staff are a powerful element in the state, and as history tells us, a dangerous one too. Yes, well, the military can indeed be close allies, and with the Rumberg threat on the horizon, we need them. Rumberg is a massive threat, one that also requires us to ally with other stronger nations. Defence Minister Iosif Lanceia is more loyal to us compared to General Kruger, a fact that obviously can change with our actions. Either way, I see a potential rift between the two, since they are clearly of different minds. If we act strongly against the military, both of those guys will unite against us. I agree with Lucian. We need to tread carefully here. Lucian looked at his watch. Well then, gentlemen, precisely 30 minutes. This concludes our political briefing for today. Our next meeting will be about our media strategy. Talk to you soon, sir. I will keep in touch. See you both at the next meeting. Lucian and Peter bid their farewells and left. A mysterious amount of smoke was rising far away on the horizon. So there you go, folks. as we quickly take a very last look here. Reform Committee has been formed. We have laid down our law. We are trying to grab all the power. Political suicide, I believe it is the technical term for this approach, but hey, our president wants it all. He wants all of these cakes and he wants to eat them. Will this be his ultimate downfall before he's even seen out the first year of his term? I'm sure the people out there, the members of the Assembly, are going to see right through his little ploy, but hey, we're going completely polar opposite here. It may seem like political suicide, it may seem crazy, but hey, I'm intrigued if we can get anywhere with it. We want all the power, we want all the money, and we want to do it and hopefully, maintain our lives ultimately. But anyway, end of the first session is here. Yeah, next one we pick up where we left off. We've got media strategy meetings, we've got other meetings, and lots of briefings and lots of decisions to make. But hey, we're the president. This is our job. How will we fare on this attempt? I'm intrigued to find out. Join me in the next session as we continue on as President Rayne, the tyrannical one. Until next time, see you soon.